refugee growers that we're working with don't speak those two languages very clearly. So with my group, we're working on developing videos in their native language that has culturally appropriate images that shows them reflected in those images that go over the safe practices they should follow out in their fields. And my colleague at Kansas State that's also working on this project is making supplementary posters that go with it, so that for these farms that they're growing this fresh produce on, they're able to publish or post these posters as a reminder for those safe practices that they learn in those videos.
Voices with value, stories with soul, tools for transformation. Innovate so you do not stagnate. This is Innovation Insights.
Welcome to another episode of Innovation Insights, where we dive deep into the minds shaping the future of industries through innovation, creativity, and groundbreaking research. We believe that innovation happens in all aspects of life. I am your host, Dr. Yolanda Sanders. Today, we're honored to have Dr. Shannon M. Coleman, who is an associate professor and extension specialist at Louisiana State University. A leader in food science, Shannon is dedicated to enhancing food safety, quality, and accessibility through education, outreach, and research. Shannon holds a PhD in animal science from Colorado State University and both a master's and bachelor's degree in food science from Alabama A&M University. Over the years, she has been a driving force behind impactful research initiatives, securing over $4.8 million in competitive grants to advance food safety education, small-scale food production, and consumer health. Her work has led to the development of innovative food safety training programs, resources for small food producers, and educational tools to address critical challenges in food systems. In today's episode, we will explore Shannon's expertise in food safety, her approach to consumer education, and how she is shaping the future of food science through innovation. Whether you are a food industry professional, an educator, or simply passionate about safe and sustainable food systems, this episode is filled with valuable insights you will not want to miss. Stay tuned as we dive into food safety, consumer health, and innovation with Dr. Shannon Coleman. Dr. Coleman, welcome to the Innovation Insights podcast. I'm so thrilled to have you here, Shannon.
I'm very excited to be here. I've followed the podcast since its start, and I am a podcast lover, and I can't believe I'm on a podcast.
Well, I'm so excited to have you on here. We have known each other now for...
I'm basing it off of what I just did this weekend with a friend that's from Louisiana. If I met you in 2011, it's been 14 years. And mine, it's only been like 7. I'm like, when I finally did my calculations this weekend, I was like, I've known them for a while, and I have to stop pretending like I have not met them. And it just happened last year or something like that.
No, my gosh, that's a long time because
It
you met at
is.
Colorado State
Yeah.
when you were in graduate school
Yeah.
there.
I had just started my
Yeah.
doctoral program and met you, and you've been there ever since. And there's a few people that has been like that for me, and I go, once you in, you can't leave.
We're also fortunate to work together at Iowa State for a few years too. So I've been fortunate to be able to call you a colleague here too.
Oh, she podcast audience. She was part of my reason why I even considered Iowa State. Like once we saw the position there, I was like, oh, I could be there with her. Oh, we could do that. That's fine. And there was other blessings that came with Ames, Iowa, but she may have been the first reason why I was like, I'm going to Ames. I can live as long as she there. I can survive.
Well, it was fun having you here. I missed you. Missed you.
I miss you as well. I The part I said this to my mentor that was in my department when she left the university and she wasn't down the hall anymore. And I go, what do I do now? Text you? And so now I have to encourage myself of you can text them. They don't have to answer you right away. I'm used to walking straight into their offices. And
Yeah.
that I have to text them. I feel like I'm invading their space.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm sure they are excited to have text messages come from you.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember when I last texted her, but I know it was something silly because I think she laughed at it.
Oh, that's funny. I want to get her on the podcast too.
Oh, yeah.
'cause,
She will be
it's
amazing.
great. Yeah, absolutely. Tell her a little bit about your journey because you're a female scientist, a food scientist. So tell us, how did that happen?
Fell in love. We had cable our whole life, my whole life. But once once the Food Network became a thing, that is the thing I used to watch from sun up to sundown. And my parents used to allow me to experiment with me saying, I watched this recipe 5 times. I think I could do it now. And so they used to let me experiment on them. They still want me to experiment at this age. And I go, oh, I learned a lot now. I don't want to do certain things. But because of that spark of I love food and then also doing science fair projects for school, I was very into big extravagant projects. My mom mentioned that to the counselor at her high school that she was teaching it. So at Fairfield High School, and to Miss Sharon Bowden about my interest in college. And so Miss Bowden said, there's this degree at Alabama A&M called food science. I think she should look into it. And we must confess that first we did not call it food science, we called it nutritional science. And we had to be corrected by Dr. Walker because my schedule was all screwed up before I started my freshman year because I wrote the wrong thing down. But Ms. Bowden went the extra mile of also sneaking me on the bus with their high school to go visit Alabama A&M and visit Dr. Walker. And from there, just like I'm saying with Dr. Sanders, once he's in, he's not allowed to be out of my life. So once he was like, hey, you should come, this is what we do, he has been a part of my life ever since. And through the different interactions with him, because like I said, we had to change my schedule. So we did another visit before I came that August. And he took me to a wall that had pictures of their current students. And he said, this one's here, this one's there, this one's here, this one's there. And he goes, if you come into this program, you're not allowed to stay at home for the summer. So this will be your last summer at home. And he was not playing. I do not know what a full summer in Birmingham, Alabama looks or feel like because I have not been there. So through that opportunity for undergrad, I got very involved with the Food Science Club. First, as just a member. And then once they figured out that I have a little bit of organization, I was the treasurer. And then that led up to me being voluntold to be the president my senior year. And then once I got to grad school, I go, I'm going back to being the treasurer. And so the different opportunities and experiences that I had at Alabama A&M, because at that time, when I was in undergrad, that was the only HBCU that was accredited through our professional organization, the Institute of Food Science. Since then, we have more. But through my experience with Alabama A&M, that afforded me, like I said, to not be there in the summer. So I got to go and visit various campuses. So I spent time at Cornell University in their food science program, at Purdue University in Arkansas. And so over the past few years, everybody's been saying people everywhere. And I was like, it's because Dr. Walker didn't let me stay at home in the summer. So that's how I got into food science. And then I got a lot of different experiences through those summer programs. Majority of my experience was in food microbiology, which led me into an interest into food safety, food microbiology. And that's where I am today.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. What I like about that is y you really share the power of mentorship and sponsorship.
Yeah, yeah. And I always call it the village. And I love to question said village when there's a decision that needs to be made and everything. And I say this all the time to Dr. Sanders. They all say the same thing. None of them disagree with each other. But do I do it every time? Yes.
Dr. Coleman, Dr. Coleman, you may call me Yolanda.
But this is Dr. Sanders. And even though everybody, this was the policy in Colorado, and even though it's Marissa Bunny, and I think I could easily got myself to the process of calling her Marissa, but then I'd be like, Dr. Bunny, and this is how, when me and her made that conversation, but to outside people, she is Dr. Bunny.
He's oh, you're wonderful. You're wonderful. I just appreciate you talking about having that village, as we call it, your group of mentors, your board of directors, but we just can't navigate this world. And as academics,
Yeah.
I think it's really just essential to have a group that you can call upon to.
Yeah. And it has been very instrumental all throughout my career. And I have met a few people who have said to me, I don't have mentors. And I'm going, how do you navigate life? Because if I don't have them, there is some things that I need to hear their experience before I dabble into it. And I guess it's a village because it's not that I ask. It's a good number. There's double digits, everybody. Let's just be honest. It doesn't that I ask all of the double digits of them the same questions, but everybody has a different insight. I was asked to be on a advisory board for faculty, and Dr. Steve Newman popped in my head because he was on the advisory board for students, and he he told me the insights of it. And I came to the conclusion that I will sit in those advisory board meetings and cry. And so I mentally and emotionally cannot do that. I came to that conclusion, I know, because emotionally, I would care about everybody. Even if they're wrong, I'd be like, we'll do better next time. But so everybody has a role, and I listen a lot to their experiences, and I know who I can go to answer certain questions.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That makes absolute sense.
Yeah. What's that?
Oh, food science. Will you tell us what that is?
So
what's the sciences in food science? We mentioned a little bit.
Yeah. So the science of food is what I would say. It explores the different chemical, physical, and mechanical aspects of food. So if there's 4 or 5 different units, I would say, that are crucial to the science of food. So there's biological, which is the microbes and the bacteria. There is chemical, which looks at the acidity and whether a product is basics, and also looking at whether the availability of water that are in food. There is the engineering and processing side of it, where we look at, when you talk about Kellogg's making that puff pastry, there is a machine that helps make that puff pastry. And then I say 4 or 5. My 4th one that I always throw in there is the sensory science. And my other mentor that we're talking about, that is her. And so that is the human aspects of how people taste and feel and the texture of things. And although we focus a lot on the human perspective of that sensory part, there's also some mechanical parts that can also give us some, I would say, objective values for certain things. Like right now with the student, we're trying to find a texture analyzer that could give her the actual texture value of her products. And so I'm finding myself explaining to some of my colleagues that are more in nutrition, and they go, what is it, Shannon? I said, it will tell them it is soft, and this is how much it is soft. But those are our key areas of food science. And as an undergrad, you have to experience all of it. And some of it you're good at, and some of it you're not good at. Mine's is probably that mechanical part we talked about. And I lean more towards the bacteria, but as you go up in higher degrees, you get to start choosing the topic that you want to address. And so I lean towards microbes a little bit during my master's and committed to it completely during my PhD. But there's all different components of your foods. While others may be eating and enjoying the food item, sometimes I may be sitting there breaking it down into pieces, trying to understand whether I like it or not, or what makes me not like it. And I bring my sensory in all the time. I can make a face when people bring up certain foods, and I go, it's the aftertaste. And they go, I don't even taste that. So that is the science of food. That's how we kind of break it down for people.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. So your dissertation was focusing on the microbe part. Could you tell us a little bit more about that research?
So the research, I actually ended up in animal science for my PhD. So I ended up in our counterpart, and really the grandfather of food science is what I was told by the animal scientists. Apparently they came first, so we have to give them their props. But I ended up working with produce safety and working with hydroponic tomatoes and looking at the safety that could be a risk, the safety risks that could occur in those settings. When we talk about produce safety, many people talk about whether it's safe to eat or whether it's nutritious. But with a lot of different outbreaks that we've been seeing occurring with produce, we're starting to look at what is the source that could lead to contamination of those produce? How does bacteria go from wherever it comes from and end up with the produce item? And so my project looked into the water safety of the hydroponic system. Water is a big issue for produce. It is used to help it nourish to grow, but it also can transport a lot of those foodborne pathogens that could make it contaminated, which could lead to people becoming ill. And so we were looking at if the water was contaminated with a foodborne pathogen, could that lead to the actual product final product having the pathogens in it? With the setup that we had, it did not, as it was set up the correct way. But we did have an accident where the system broke, and that's when we saw contamination, which in real life, those type of situations come, and those type of situations could lead to one of those outbreaks that you could see in real life. So I had real life happen during my doctoral program, and it actually made it into my paper.
I think that's actually good because, because then it's very applicable. Sometimes research is a little bit more theoretical, but this is really applicable. And I know that you do work in food safety and since you have extension and outreach as part of your job duties, that means that you're out and about throughout the state, I guess in Louisiana now, working on it. So you talk about that, or also some of the past projects that you've done out in community?
Yes. When we talk about extension and outreach, we're taking the same research that I did for my PhD and taking it and sharing it with the target audience. How I saw my doctoral work show up in my extension role in Iowa, I was a part of our Safe Produce team. And we would actually be sitting in the room with farmers and growers and saying, hey, you need to watch out for this and that. And sometimes they would say, y'all don't look like y'all have any dirt under y'all fingers. Have y'all done this work before? And we would rebuttal back saying, now we don't go to your level of doing it, but we did simulate it in the lab, and here are the situations and the results that we saw there. I talked about the hydroponic setting breaking and the water going everywhere and how that salmonella splashed on those tomatoes. And then once I transitioned here to LSU, my focus went to 3 different areas. So my areas are food preservation, consumer food safety, as well cottage food, and retail. And so I've been spending a lot of time since I've been here trying to working on developing a food preservation curriculum for the state. Food preservation has been out there forever, way before any of us were born. I had a colleague that say even before many of us were thought of. But over the years, many of the pioneers in food science started exploring whether there were safe measures in doing these preservation methods. And so there are people out there such as Dr. Elizabeth Andres who sat down and made up standardized recipes that could follow safe practices for people to follow. And a big barrier in this role is because food preservation has been out for years, people have their practices that they follow. Either they were taught by their grandparents or their parents, or even the people who engage in 4-H. They they use a lot of these methods in their exhibits. And because of those practices, for a person like me showing up and saying, hey, we found out that that is unsafe. You sometimes are getting a pushback there as far as the practice, but using the data and the information that we have from Dr. Andres, we're able to tell them, hey, this is the safer method to do that practice. Other things that I do in extension, have some projects. I'm 1 foot still a little bit in Iowa because I have some projects that I'm finishing up. And then I'm bringing some of my projects here with me to Louisiana. And so one project that I am very proud of that I've been working on for the past 3 years is developing videos and posters for refugee growers in the Midwest. Many of the cities in the Midwest have served as a safe space or a place that has been accepting refugees from many foreign countries. And there are social services organizations that work with those refugees to get them all acclimated and set up in these cities. And there's a group in Iowa, a couple of groups in Iowa. We're working with one in particular, and then we're working with another group in Kansas City where they have some of these refugees that are actually fresh produce growers. And there's been a lot of regulation that's starting to come in place for produce growing and for produce that people are growing. And there's a lot of regulations and practices and safety and trainings that are going on. But those trainings are traditionally in English. They do also now have it in Spanish. But these refugee growers that we're working with don't speak those two languages very clearly. With my group, we're working on developing videos in their native language that has culturally appropriate images that shows them reflected in those images that go over the safe practices they should follow out in their fields. And my colleague at Kansas State that's also working on this project is making supplementary posters that go with it, so that for these farms that they're growing this fresh produce on, they're able to publish or post these posters as a reminder for those safe practices that they learn in those videos. And so that's one project that I'm proud of, that I'm leading said project. And another project that I'm on that I'm not leading, but I'm a member of the team that's actively present, is our iTips project, which is innovation tips for safe food safety practices. And it covers the current good manufacturing practices that small food processors should be following in their food businesses. In that area with small food processors, they are allowed to get food licenses for their businesses, but the way the regulation is written, because if they're not making a certain amount of money, in some states, they're not required to take a food safety training. And so we're trying to find innovative ways of how to reach them. And so we teamed up with New Mexico State University, and they have a innovative technology lab where they develop videos and games and curriculum with curriculum specialists. And they have been tapped to work a lot in the area of food safety. So they have a lot of food safety grants and projects. And we've been working with them. And so we initially came up with a game that is out there on the website. I'll get the link to you so that you can put it in the notes that we did test out with processors both in Iowa and New Mexico as well as Massachusetts. And so the game is out there, and now what we're working on as we were developing the game, we go, oh, and we want to tell them this, and oh, we want to tell them that. And the curriculum specialist was like, they would have to play this game for hours. The amount of information y'all want to put in there. During our testing trial of the actual game, we did find out those who just sit and go all the way through the game, it takes about 30 minutes, enough for half of your lunch break to complete. But so we are now working on developing an on-demand curriculum that goes with that game, that goes more in depth to all those things that we wanted to tell them that could not make it into the game. And so we're trying to work on building it up as a badge system, because now when you work with curriculum specialists, you start finding out things that people want to use as a tool to motivate people. And so having that badge system, they said would work as far as helping them say, I accomplished this goal. I have a goal sticker. And that's something that our team is working through now, and working with they call it the on-demand team. So that I guess that's their online team that is working through. We provide them with slides and the script and give them ideas of some innovation we want to do for interactive activity. And then they build it. And then we are going through the process of approving things. And so those two make me smile when I'm working on those projects. I'm very highly motivated. I'm excited to see the impact of that work. And because it goes beyond just making a tool, is with a lot of thought, and a lot of thought went behind to make sure that we made something that was not just giving them the information, that also was culturally appropriated for those particular audiences.
And I so appreciate the innovation of communicating to various groups, and that you're also being innovative in your delivery of the message through gamification, through videos, through in person, additional curriculum that you're developing. In both examples, it's such fabulous innovation through education.
Yes. I did not like Death by PowerPoint as a student. And so I really hate that process. As an extension person, when I am working in teams, they go, we can just do a PowerPoint. And I go, and when we gonna stop and interact with them? And they go, no, if we just tell them. And I would like to shout out Miss Jan, then Dr. Jan, I think she at the PhD, with the Project Learn group at Iowa State. She said, you are training learners, and there's only so much you can tell them. You should be inspiring them to want to know this information and actually put it to work. So stop telling them. Like, she used to fuss at us to go, and we told them this, and we told them that. And she said, that's the problem. You keep telling them things.
I love that. Death by PowerPoint. Those days are over. Thank goodness.
The more I can get up and move around, and I don't try to say that I'm an expert in it. Like right now with a project that we're doing for 4-H, this is more in person to do some curriculum with them as far as food safety, food science, as it relates to their challenge exhibits, cookery exhibits, and food and health exhibits. We're working within 3 states. And we're trying to develop interactive activities. And I was like, I have them. Now that we have a curriculum expert in place, let's refine it, and so that it's in a good spot so we can use it again. And so one of our conversations this week was, how are we showing cross-contamination? Do we want to just say cross-contamination can occur and it comes from everywhere? Or do we want to just contaminate one thing and say, this is your source of contamination? And so our group is trying to figure out which one are we trying to communicate, that the germs are everywhere or that the germs come from one thing. And so that is something that I kind of considered when I did the program the first time. But this time we're taking the time to sit down and think through it and make sure that we are identifying what could stick with our audience at the end.
Incredible projects, really incredible. And as you're speaking about them, it's making me think about innovation and working in teams because, your whole language has been, it's a team. We've done this together. We've done that. You speak to how you have been able to innovate in teams. I know you've worked with a lot of different teams throughout your whole career.
Yes, we all hated group projects in school. And as an adult, if someone makes me be in a group, I might not like that group. So I learned in my career you could choose the group that you want and get things done. I have several of my colleagues, when I initially invite them to our groups and teams, they go, "What am I doing?" And I go, "You have a role. There are always some certain things that some of us know, and that's where you come in and bring in your expertise." And so I am I strongly support having a team. I am Shannon Coleman. I am a food safety nerd. And what do I know? Food safety. I am in extension. And I think some people say if you're in extension, that means you're a good teacher. And I'm like, when do we get trained to be a good teacher? We just said we want to educate people and that we know the background. We did not say that we have this long experience in education. Now, there are some people in ag education and ag extension. Those people have been classically trained. Me, as a food safety expert, I had not been classically trained. Miss Jan had to work hard on me. So we have to seek out that trainings to show us how to do a proper lesson plan. What is a learning objective? How are you going to do an assessment? Is it formal or informal? What does that look like? You can put a lecture in there, but how long do you want that lecture to be? You can't talk for 2 hours straight. You need to figure out how to break it down into chunks and stuff like that. With me, I've seen myself work or bring to the table curriculum experts, evaluation, because that's another misconception about. Now, there are some extension. I am friends with those extension people who know evaluation. Shannon, once again, is the food safety, food microbiologist. Work with evaluators on my evaluation. There are people out there that have background in evaluation. And for the extension people, there are ag people out there with evaluation experience that can work very well with you. And even for them, they go, "What you want me to do?" I said, once we get the tool together, what information do you need for us to help do the evaluation tool? And that's where it started becoming critical that we have learning objectives, because that is what they use to do our evaluation for that programming. And I work with them in different capacities of one-on-one, where I come up with the curriculum, they do the evaluation, or they work in conjunction with my students. So especially for graduate students, when you're talking about your research being that evaluation, you have certain papers you need to read and know about. Because when you get to your defense, you have to stand up there by yourself. Your advisor can't be there. I got a couple of them. They can't be there with you. And so they do some mentorship as well of showing them, read this paper, understand this. When you did this analysis, this is why you did it. You have to be able to explain these things. We've been working with those type of things. So having a curriculum specialist, evaluation specialist, as well as not even just in the area of food safety. One group that I'm in now is 2 food safety people. And we needed to bring in an engineer, because you remember that was the subject that Shannon did not like as much when she was an undergrad. I passed. And so we have an engineer that's coming to the table that can explain the processing part of the work that we're doing with the topic that we're addressing. So having the team, having to be a cohesive team is very important for the work that you do. And even if you choose your own team, let's talk about the truth here. There are times that, yes, you choose your own team, y'all all to get together, y'all work together. Does everybody stay at the table? No. There's been some people that had to step away, and I've been okay with that. I hope they've been okay with that, but it just got to the point where it was their time. Their time had served, and then it was done as far as the work we were doing. Although, even like I said, I started off with, remember when we did like group projects in school? And some people they probably just won't like group projects forever, but it's very hard to do things on your own. In leadership, before I left Iowa State, we talked about working in silos and how people work in silos. And I was there saying, I have done more. I have been more successful when I worked in a team that everybody brought something to the table instead of me trying to do it by myself. When I tried to do it by myself, I became frustrated. I became tired. I can run myself into the ground. And so working in silos will not help you. It only brings a form of bitterness out of you. And so we have 2 new faculty members here at LSU. And one of them, she has officially adapted me or told me that my title is the connector. Because the whole time I've been telling her, you need to talk to this person. You want to do that? Talk to this person. Did you follow back up with that person? Because you don't want to do it by yourself. You need to be doing it together. And so I'm trying to instill that into them so that they don't harbor that bitterness that you can develop if you try to do it on your own.
But I also feel like you just don't have as good of ideas.
No. I was just talking to Dr. Eubanksfield, get her shout out. Today, she was talking about that. She says to herself, and I told her I've had this realization in the past couple of years. She goes, you may not have the right idea. I say it as, you don't have to be right every time. There's sometimes that someone else can bring something to the table that you could use that will take this topic to the next step that you want to take it to. I say it all the time. I think I scare people because I go, okay, what do you want to do? And they say, are you asking me? And I go, yeah. And then they go, you asking me? Yeah, what do you want to do? And then they go, this. I said, okay, let's try it. And I think I just scare them because I'm saying, if you have an idea, we're not going to stop your idea. We will try it. And if it don't work, we come back to the table and try something else.
That is such an important part of innovation, is that willingness to try. Doesn't work, try something else.
Yeah. Starting, we talked about that today too, about it's okay to walk away from it or to start back over. And so know when it's your time to walk away or when it's time to say, let's start again. I'm all about, let's go back again. Then we just talked about that you always don't have to be right. But I also say this, that I'd rather it be done right than to rush it and still have to go back and fix it. So I put pauses on stuff. I delay stuff. And I think I've gained a lot of respect from people when I do that, instead of me just rushing through it just to get it done. I do not like, and this is for the future grad students who are watching this podcast, I do not like to rush things along. I do want you to sit down and consider every part of it and what effect could happen. And then if you do try it, something happens, let's work on fixing it and getting that back on track so we can move forward.
I'm so glad you said that, because some grad programs have the philosophy of almost being a manufacturer. That, okay, grad programs are 3 years, and you have to be just finished in 3 years. And I remember when I started grad school, I did finish in 3 years, and that was an anomaly. Taking the time to really do it well and right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I try to focus on, and I have this as a resource for every student. We work on timelines, and I tell them as they work through their timeline, adjust it, because whatever timeline you leave me with, that's what I'm going to show the next student. And so I tell the next student, here's their timeline. This is how they thought through it. Now think through yours and see how you want to do yours. And so for some people, I had one student and she cheated. She started as an undergrad the semester before she started her graduate degree. So she secured her spot as a graduate student by doing a project and then just continued said project. But she did it in 2 years flat, a master's. But that is because she did the proper planning from the beginning. She knew what her intentions were when she was coming in. And I always applaud her for that, because I tell people, she used to be mad at herself, and I would have to tell her, don't be mad at herself. Like, she'll go, I'm off the timeline. Something's wrong. We got to do something about it. I got to catch myself up.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, it's okay. What can I do to help you? Because you are off your time. Like, I never knew. Like, there will be, like, she would come to her meeting mad because she is off her timeline. And some of my mentors said to me, Shannon, all the students are not like that. And I haven't had many that were not like her after that. But that showed me that she had really devoted her time to that project and she wanted to see it through. And so for some people, for me, for my PhD, I think we did it solid 4. But for my master, we had to do an extra semester. Yeah. And I'm very grateful for Dr. Heron for allowing me for that extra semester. And in that extra semester, I learned a lot. Part of why I had to stay the extra semester is I had ordered things and they didn't come when they were supposed to. So part of that extra semester was getting the things I needed and pushing it through as far as my project goes. And so I don't like procrastinate. I procrastinate on some things in life. Not saying that I never procrastinate, but I don't plan to procrastinate. And so that's why I have my students doing timelines, because if I knew what my plan was from the beginning, we could have been done straight at those 2 years if I knew what the plan was.
So your master's took 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know how long my master's took?
How long?
I don't know if you know this.
No. How long?
My master's took me longer than my PhD.
How long was
My master's was 4 years.
man?
I was working in Denver, so I was working 60 miles away, and I was also teaching full time. And so I was teaching 3 to 4 classes a semester, also working in Denver. And then my father also was in a really bad car accident
Yeah.
during that time. Plus, I was hand knitting
Yeah. That's
great garments that forever.
yeah. And I also say this to students as well, is that a graduate degree is hard for everyone for different ways. Like for you, I start those type of projects. I think I try to dabble in your world. I tell her all the time that I'm cheating because I use videos, I use looms, but I think she could like do it real fast and beat me through the process. But to do that and have it done the way that it's supposed to be done, that takes time and effort, and that is not something you just wake up and do the next day. A friend that I met in Colorado State along with you, Kim Render, they did vocal performance. They had to learn another language. And although Shannon is in the audience and do not know what word they are saying, if they said the wrong word, there was somebody in the audience who will probably call them out on it. So they had to know that their defense was sitting there singing, I'm exaggerating, Kim, 10 songs in 5 different languages. I would say in one room, I'm going to do you 10 songs in English. I did this song. I was in English. And they can't mess up. They have to have the right pitch, and they have to hit a lot of things in a row in order for them to pass. My cousin husband George is a professor teaching in the area of trumpets, I think. Oh Lord, he gonna get me at Penn State. And his tenure process is he has to travel the world, the country, and do recitals and performances and have a background and theory behind what he's doing, who he's doing it for. And so everybody has their own heart for their own reason in their own area. And the big thing about it is how you persevere against it and how you make it to the other side as far as that challenge goes.
And also what you just shared too is really an appreciation for the diverse ways of knowing and creating knowledge, and that in academia is not working with qualitative data and doing some type of modeling statistics, and that's the only way to do research. And scholarship. And you've done such a nice job of just framing various different ways of creating knowledge, which we do in academia.
Yeah. I would like to go back to growing salmonella some days. I do it sometimes because I can guarantee that it will grow at this temperature at this time. For us people who work in the social sciences, people are hard to work with, and y'all have to have grace on us because we for some of the agents and I were talking about that we fill out every survey that's sent to us. Because if we don't fill out the survey, we feel like we're going to get bad juju, and people won't fill out our surveys when we send them.
Also, when I'm asked to be interviewed for someone collecting qualitative data, I'm like, yes, I'll do it because...
Yeah, and then I go back and read the paper and find where I show up in said paper. There go me. That was me.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you for your thoughts on how to work with scholarship and research, and that there's just various ways. And for myself, I talked about humans, and my research for my dissertation was dead humans, and they're a little more complicated.
They were. I'd be like, I need to be in a room with a window open to make sure they don't wake up and get me.
I never that type of dead human. I'm like, no, oh my God. No.
What's she doing with dead people?
No, they were dead people that had written narrative.
Yes, and then they probably started talking in your dream. Oh, she read about me. Let me go talk to her.
I dabble in textile science a little bit, chemistry and that, but the biological sciences and human.
No, I was wondering. I said, what did she do with? She didn't tell me about cadavers. I think there's words.
I can still remember the aroma of the frog that I had to dissect in 8th grade biology.
The joys of going to a small Catholic school. We didn't have that in our funding. No. My friends want to take me in a lab and have me dissect one just for the fun of them. But if I have avoided it this many years, I don't have to do it.
What's sad is I have a photographic memory sometimes. It's all right now. Memories are flooding back. And what the fun part of the only fun thing that we got to do is that we had to do something with all the bones afterward and reconstructing something. And so I made mine into a woman sitting in a rocking chair knitting. Had to go back to textiles.
But
eighth grade biology.
Hey,
My frog was knitting.
mine. I'm very grateful that I did not have to do that because I would get that. I am still shocked. I admit that I never interacted with any anatomy of any animal. I did partake in turkey processing during my undergrad because we were going to have our fundraiser to raffle off a turkey. Mr. Lou said we had to process our own turkey. And I experienced that. I feel so bad for them.
Oh my gosh. So how was it like you got a red turkey and you had to process that?
He walked them to their death. And he did not let us stay on the kill floor. We were not allowed. And so I did see the shock from the electric shock that they get. And next thing I know, they were coming through the processor for us to take out their guts. And they were warm. I touched them. So that one, I think I don't have to touch a turkey. I have to touch a frog.
Like this, I remember growing up and my mother, for some reason, decided, well, no, she just cracks me up. But she decided we needed fresh turkey, not turkey, chickens.
Yes.
And so we were in Montrose, Colorado. And I remember, I must have been like 5 years old. I remember that sitting in the car as they were taking care of the chickens' lives. And then we got the chickens, brought them home, and she had to defeather them. I think she was so sick of it at the end that she didn't even want any of the chickens. Or I just remember the smell and
yeah, that is our world in food science, food safety as well. We have to take meat science or poultry science. And so I ended up taking meat science. I said, cool, not many meat processing here in Alabama. But we still had to go to that poultry plant and see we started from the hatchery and made it all the way to the end of the processing. And I think that's where my disassociation comes in. So I need to have more grace for our feathered friends. But we had to learn the process from when they were born until they're to the end.
oh, Laurie.
And this is our world.
Well, it is. And I'm so thankful for the people that do that work. And
yeah, and they're very passionate about it, and I see why.
Yeah, I'm very thankful that they are doing it.
Yeah.
Well, share with us some of your thoughts on the future of food safety and where are we going?
We have the Food Safety Modernization Act, which covers food from the farm to the table. In previous years, as far as food safety goes, we saw more heavy regulations on meats up until that point. But then we started seeing outbreaks with food beyond meat. Produce, we saw an increase in outbreaks. Even now, we're starting to see shelf-stable foods be a part of outbreaks. And so with that Food Safety Modernization Act, they cover produce, processing, shipping, trading, and traceability. It's going to be a big thing in food safety. With me working within the local food systems, that's why we see a lot of increase in local food systems because people know where their food came from. But in the larger industry, because of that FSMA rule and traceability, we're starting to know on that end where these ingredients are coming from, where the final products come from, what type of safety parameters has been put in place to make sure that that product is safe. And so traceability is going to be a big thing, and it's something we're working our way through now. And we see it with the larger industry as far as FSMA go, and we are seeing, some people keep saying, why do we see so many recalls now? One part of that FSMA rule now is that people have to declare allergens. So some of those recalls are, did you declare all your allergens on there? If you didn't, you need to recall it back and relabel your product. And then in the local food area, although people know where it came from, they are putting more in place of making sure that you label your food. So the jams and jellies that you get from the farmer's market, they want you to put your name or your business name and contact information just in case something goes awry with your product, or if you need to recall your product. How are you diligent? What due diligence are you putting in place to make sure that you can recall your products back? With those smaller industries, in certain states, that's not completely put into place, or that's not the rules and the laws. But that's one thing that I saw change in Iowa, is that they had particular food for cottage industry and whole food processors, and having a better way of, you need to be tracing your lots or the batches that you put out and things like that, so that if something goes awry, that you have the proper documentations in place that can help you. One of my colleagues said, with this Food Safety Modernization Act, growers and processors said, oh, y'all are trying to get us in trouble. And the colleague said, no, we're not trying to get you in trouble. We actually, with this rule, they're showing you how to put certain protocols and standards and data and records in place, so that if something happens, you can show on your end what did you do to make sure that you're following safe practices, so that we can look more deep into that to see what the issue actually is. When we think about the McDonald's outbreak that happened in the fall, first they said, oh, it's the quarter pounder. And people said, oh, it's that patty. And the meat science people probably looked at us like, no, it's not. We have things in place, and McDonald's has their quality in place. And onions, which actually ended up being the source of contamination, according to both, onions can't make you sick. Onions can't carry pathogens. We starting to see that it can. So we probably need to look into onions too. So we saw it with a meal delivery company. We seeing it with this restaurant now. And so that's something we probably will be having conversations about this summer, about how do you, and maybe that restaurant will show up and say, here are the things we put in place, and this is how within 2 days we could track down what led to our contamination. And that just shows you that traceability is there to help and not harm.
Absolutely. And I agree. I've been involved with opening up some small entities that were food related, and had, and labeling the lot and that information, and the state agencies are really good to work with and really helpful, and I think provide great information.
We actually sit in rooms, everybody, and say, I've sat in a room with inspectors and other extension people, and I've said, I'm tired of being there drink chilling. Like, I don't want to stop you from doing what you want to do. You just want to make sure that you're doing it right. Because once you harm someone's family member, they are not nice. I know. No. I told with the class that I was teaching one time, I feel like I had to come out of Dr. Coleman and show up at Shannon. And I told them, I said, if something happens to my mom and daddy, I'm going to take you. I'm going to take you and all your money. And one of my mentors came behind us and said, hey, I start going back and forth. And then the next year, he added to his lecture, you have to think about that these are people's family members. And I said,
absolutely.
I said the same thing. And you told me to stop busting back and forth.
No, it's so true. The stakes are high, and so it's important. But I think also realizing that the state regulations and the state agencies are there to help. And from my experience working with like food inspectors, I felt like I could call or email about anything, and they were just so responsive and so easy to work with, and answered questions.
Yeah. And they can take you only so far. Like if you get to the point where they say, this is what I could tell you as it relates to the regulations. And when companies need a little bit more help, a lot of times the inspectors direct them to us in Extension and Outreach to respond to their requests. We don't got them to this point, Dr. Coleman. Can you help them now? Somebody else needs to explain to them why. Most of the time they have been very responsive to it. Some people want to do what they want to do, but I would say for us, I'm all about all of us working together and having a united front. And the inspectors ask us what we think, we ask them what they think, and then us responding the same way together. to things is also helpful. So having those type of relationships are important as well.
Yeah. I would love to get your definition of innovation as we wrap this up.
My definition, when I think of innovation and the work that I do, is always looking at what can take it to the next level. So I'm always looking for, we done this, now where can we go next? And so you have, at that point, there's creativity and innovation that comes together to get the final product that you're looking for. But it's not just, I'm all about, if there's a certain rule, I'm a rule follower. I will follow said rule. But once we see that said rule is not making the impact that we're looking for, I'm always saying, how can we take this conversation to the next level to make sure that we're reaching the audience that we want to reach and giving them the information that they need? Those who have participated in my programs, they actually come back. And I may not know their name, but they go, I had so much fun with you the first time. I think let's do this again. And I think it's the innovation that I bring into the curriculum that helps them be able to use that and apply the information that is given to them.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that definition. And I hope that you'll come back again, talk to us about other projects that you're doing or the progress of the ones that you're working on.
Yeah, we can talk about the videos and
Yeah.
do a collaboration with Swabo.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah, because they're doing excellent work. My graduate student actually found them and she brought it to the table. I said, do you want to bring it to the table to the team and ask their opinion about should we work with them? And she brought it to the table. The team agreed, and they have been excellent partners to work with. And they had all the things in place that we needed to do the work that we were trying to desire, the work we were doing.
And is it a company or organization that does curriculum development, or?
It is part of university. So it's different faculty members from one of the faculty members started at Michigan State and Purdue. And the name of the organization is Swabo, but they get a lot of different contracts and grants working with faculty members to help develop different curriculums and videos.
And we are. Oh, yeah. Oh.
In different languages. Yes.
Oh, let's do it. That sounds great. That sounds great. Oh, again, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I can't believe I made it. And we got to laugh in my podcast because I was like, man, if it's going to be serious, but I cannot wait to watch our bloopers with our laughter.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. There's always a lot of bloopers. So, to our audience, thank you for joining us again for another episode of the Innovation Insights podcast. We'll make sure that we have Dr. Coleman's information in the show notes so that you can connect with her. And I hope that this conversation has been inspiring in understanding the importance of the science of food and the impact in your life, and then how you can also be innovative in how you educate people and work in teams together to get work done. So if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, comment on the podcast. Don't forget to follow Dr. Coleman in her work. And please stay connected with us on all of our social media platforms. We're all over the place, or our website. And as always, thank you for tuning in, and keep innovating, keep dreaming, and keep making a difference.